Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone this week to this week's Imperial as One's Belonging series, exploring the blame experience. And this week it's our pleasure to have with us, um, so, sorry, yeah, this week it's our pleasure to have with us Selasi Gbormittah. I mashed it up again. I went through it so many times and I still got it wrong. So
You should have just said Smith.
this was our conversation yesterday, wasn't it? You did say
Yeah.
just say Smith Way, right? So I would like to introduce everyone to Selasi Smith, right? All right.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so um, I'm. It's our normal. He was a baking sensation. He still is a baking sensation in the 2016 edition of Great British Bake Off. And it's our pleasure this week to be able to have him here, and he's going to give us a little bit of an insight into his early days and some of the motivations which resulted in him continuing his passion of um, continuing passion for baking and other things. So Selasi, could we start off just by welcoming you for one, but also by asking
Thank you.
you a little bit about your early childhood, etc. And was that was that where you got your passion for baking? Can you give us a little bit of an idea of where this passion?
Um, the passion for baking actually came when I moved to the UK,
Okay,
but the passion for, I guess, food was literally from an early age. Ghanaian culture is all about food, and we eat literally weddings, birthdays, funerals, literally any gathering. And there used to be this thing where on the Sundays after church, you drive to different relatives'
yeah,
houses or homes.
yeah,
And then, they would offer you food. So you can't even say no. So literally imagine just on a Sunday, you end up having 3 to 5 plates of food with a nice cold Fanta or Coke or malt or something. To send you off on your way to the next location. So I've always loved food, and I grew, when I was growing up, Ghanaians tend to have two kitchens. Not all Ghanaians, but if you could afford it, you have two kitchens. The main one, which is the nice one inside the house, and then we always used to enjoy outdoor cooking, which is what I really love because it was just over a coal fire, big pots, and we always used to cook in bulk, um, big amounts of food. So I remember I always used to play around outside, and the empty tomato cans, I'll rinse them off, and then basically be pretend cooking my own rice and different things in there, whilst my mom or our auntie or help or wherever is cooking. So I'll be sort of pretend cooking, and then I'll steal my sister's sort of doll or something and pretend to be feeding. It's quite bad, pretend to be feeding. So I've always been around food, and if my parents were looking for me, they would know that I'll probably be in the kitchen. And I there is discipline in Ghana, so we used to get caned at school, and I used to be quite a naughty child, right? So yeah, I remember, I've gotten into trouble, having, my dad would go to the supermarket and buy, everything in bulk, biscuits, everything where it'll be ready for a party. So big party coming up, big bag of biscuits, sweet for the kids, etc. And then a few weeks before, what happened? Myself and my brother or a couple of my cousins, we started eating them months beforehand, and then a few weeks before.
should I no? Should I be closing my ears, or am I going to be part of the conspiracy? Carry on.
No,
Carry
there's no
on.
there's no conspiracy. So then my dad will, so a few weeks before, my dad decided to check the stock, and then we finished about half the biscuits. And we got in trouble for that. So I've always loved food to the point that it always got me into trouble. Um, And so when I was growing up, the whole thing was I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to be a chef, but traditionally, I don't have any sort of professional chefs or cooks in my family. Africans or Ghanaians can cook. Like, they
Yeah.
don't look at recipes, they don't measure anything, they just chuck everything in and it comes out amazing. And I've always wanted to be a chef, but I didn't really have any sort of role model or influence to kind of look up to. And it's only when I came to the UK, I was like, oh, okay, this is possible, because you can go to catering school here, or chef school, or culinary school actually is the right word. But then I'd never really saw that through. So I had the option to go to Nottingham Trent University or go to Hammersmith College to study culinary. Then I decided to go to Nottingham, and then ended up doing economics and finance. And then on the back of, so because I was always into cooking, I would always be cooking at uni, at student halls of residence, in my uni accommodation. And I think that's when I picked up, this was 2006 or 7. That's when I picked up baking, and I've fallen in love with it since. So when I was growing up, baking I knew nothing about it, because it was not something that, my parents grew up or did with us in the kitchen. I mean, we would go out to the streets to buy bread and, all these amazing breads and biscuits, but I just never knew how they made them. All we saw was in a package, and you just pick it up, have your breakfast, have your dinner, have your lunch, and that was it.
So you said earlier on just that much of the cooking which was done within the home was by either your mum or aunts or so. As a male child, was it frowned upon that you took an interest in cooking, or how did that transpire, or were they kind of like?
I'm not sure it was.
Go on.
I'm not sure it was frowned upon, because my dad could cook, or my dad can cook, and he used to cook loads. My mom used to cook, so they used to take turns, and my aunties used to cook. It wasn't really frowned upon, but there was no sort of, stop cooking. So they didn't say stop cooking, and I mean, they always told me to go read a book or do my homework, but they never really said stop cooking. This is not like a man's job kind of thing.
Fine.
They I was a kid, they just like, whatever. And then, to be fair, when relatives used to visit us, they always used to call me chef, or they say, hey, what are you cooking today? So they kind of, on a subtle note, just encouraged it kind of thing. So they were sort of like, oh, what are you cooking today? Because I just did it without seeking their permission. So I'll go in and whip up fried rice, or whip up something, and I used to learn the traditional cooking as well, and they just loved it. So they never really said no, don't do it, because this is not a place for a man, kind of. If that makes sense.
No, that's fine. It's just I know what you said. You said that you got your interest in baking kind of like when you came to university in the UK, up in Nottingham, and I know when I went to university, there were many students who, I think, seeing a pot and pan was maybe the first time in their life they had to. So you coming in with a.
I've seen some horror cases where which is fair, because not everyone is made for the kitchen, and I'm a believer in people have specific roles in this world, so not everyone can cook, which is fine. So they'll rather spend money to buy food, which is absolutely fine. But I have seen some funny things where you're just like, oh wow, this is interesting. But for me, being in the kitchen is my comfort zone. I just sort of zone out and just enjoy. I just love being in there, and I just forget everything, that is maybe going on in my life or around the world, and I just zone in and just concentrate on that and just enjoy it, because not many people have that opportunity to say, oh, I can cook or bake, to sort of forget about anything that's happening in the world and in my life. And cooking and baking and food and everything, for me, it's a way to sort of share experiences, to share joy, to share laughter with friends and family. And that's what I think my upbringing has been about. So food was almost a focal or a central point where, like I said earlier, if there's a party, everything, party, wedding, which is common here, but even at funerals, there'll be food because it just brings people together, and, you know, you find comfort in food and baking and cooked products. And I've always been that kind of a person.
It sounds to me, I'm just thinking about what you've just said, whereby you liked doing the baking outside, or you liked cooking outside, and you'd have your aunts and everything. It sounds to me it was almost like I'm not going to say a communal, but it was like a place where the family could come together and you were sharing an experience whilst you were going through the cooking process. Am I right to say that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right, because we would even I went to, and that sort of tradition is still happening now. I was in Ghana in January this year before COVID, and exactly the same thing. You know, the kitchen in the main house was never touched. It's clean, it's spotless. But we did a lot of cooking outside, and, you know, we laughed, we talked, we just shared, you know, just every experience in there, and that was a great thing, and it's still happening now. And it's just great.
I like that idea of it. The food is almost a byproduct of the conversation, but the food is still very important in the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And also, what we tend to do when the food is ready, right?
Yeah.
You know, we most of the time we would all eat together.
Yeah.
So we could either go sit at the dining table or at the table, or sit around that same campfire, and eat either from the same plate or bowl, or have individual plates or bowls, which was great because all you needed to do, we used to eat, depending on the food, we eat with our hands. So all you just needed to do is wash your hand from the same bowl, big bowl, just go in, talk, laugh. I mean, if you wanted to fight over the fish or the meat, or, you know, the last vegetable, okra or whatever in the soup, you just go for it. And it was just great. And we never worried about, you know, who's going to clean up after, because after we would all clean up together and wash the dishes, and then sit there and talk some more, laugh some more, and then we all go to bed.
So it's not just so some people may view cooking as, oh, it's just something I have to do, but the way you've described it, it's not it's about a communal gathering. It's about coming together. It's about sharing the experience of eating, but the experience of the preparation and pulling people together, a way of sharing stories. Yeah. Would you? Yeah. So, in terms of
definitely,
in terms of baking, then, because you're a relatively late comer to baking, if you didn't start until you were at uni.
Very late. I remember in the tent, everyone had a story. I used to bake with my grandma. I used to, you know, practice with my dad in the kitchen when I was a young age, and I'm just looking around. I was like, I have none of this because, you know, it came late to me completely. I remember my first cupcake attempt at university, and it came out rock hard, and I was like, wow. I think I've got a lot of work to do. So yeah, but it was good. I mean, I've kind of grown, and I'm still learning. So yeah.
So what is it about baking then? Because it sounds like now you like the cooking, but your focus more now is on baking. What is it about that whole baking process that's kind of like captured your attention?
Initially, I wasn't a fan because cooking compared to baking is completely different. Cooking is quite rogue, you know, you just chuck things together and hope for the best. And most of the time you get it right. Add a bit of salt, add a bit of water, just to sort of play with the flavors and how they come out in terms of taste and flavor, etc. But baking is very much a science. And I've never been good at sciences like at college, because I think I picked the worst courses at college. So I was doing business, economics, sociology, world development, chemistry, and biology. And it was just you know, they just never fit together, but I just picked them. And I realized at that point that I was never really good at the sciences and, you know, learning the formulas and understanding the human body. And so I dropped them. So I never really liked the sciences. So with, you know, physics, chemistry, biology, all being like big science subjects, baking was kind of similar because you have to measure everything, you have to be specific, you have to know, understand the ingredients and how they react to temperature, so to heat, to cold, and how certain ingredients work, etc., and timing. So for me, it was never something that I enjoyed, but I kind of had to, because if I wanted to enjoy baking and love baking as much as I do now, it was something that I had to learn. And this is one thing that I'm still learning, because there's so many processes and things that you need to do. And there's so many techniques around baking that are still new and people are still developing, and you have to kind of be creative in your own way. So for me, I've kind of understood ingredients more now. The techniques, the science around it, and I'm still learning, and I just love it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go into the tent then. Your experiences in the tent. How well? How did you get? From someone who had just started learning to bake at university, and then like 4 years ago, being in the tent. Yeah, about 4 years ago, being in the tent in the bake-off, doing the bake-off, the last 12. What was the whole process that you had to go through to get into the tent? Not even, forget about what happened in the tent, but what was that process like to get to the tent in the first place? Because we often don't see that on the TV. We just see the 12 in the tent.
Okay, so well, first of all, you have to kind of know how to bake, you know, just simple things, understand how sponges work, pie, you know, pastries, the breads, etc. Just the basics. And to be fair, you don't have to be perfect at everything, because we can't all be perfect, right? So for me, learning, when I moved to the UK, learning how to bake, I had to rely on a lot of YouTube videos and just watching, you know, people like the Ainsleys of the world, you know, just understanding how they're doing it, how they make it look so easy and free flowing. So then when I started watching the Bake Off, I used to kind of watch and understand how these bakers were working, and, you know, what their strengths were, where, you know, so then I had to start learning and prepping my mindset for that. I never really wanted to go on it until I started, you know, I've always been, you know, when I've always been in the financial service industry. So, and I've always been a big fan of charities and charity work. So I always used to do, you know, bake sales, so many things. And then I used to use that as a practice. So when you're doing when you're doing bake sales, X amount in so many in a year, etc., you know, you have to almost try and bake different things, because then there's a little competition. You're watching, ooh, what did this person bake for the next bake sale? Because you're like, okay, I need to try and up my game. And then on the back of that, everyone at work was saying, oh, you should apply for the Great British Bake Off. I was like, nah, I'm not good enough, because these guys are doing amazing things. And then eventually I kind of got the courage to say, you know what, let's try it. And then, so this is the process. I'll try not to say too much, because we still have to, you know, keep it all
a bit secret,
clean and stuff. Yeah, a bit secret. But then there are a few stages to the audition process. So most of them is about testing your knowledge and understanding of your, you know, why you love the show. Why do you think you deserve to be on the show? How good of a baker you are. And just basically they want to make sure, as much as it's for TV, they want to make sure you can actually bake.
Right.
And at my year, we had, I think from what I remember, what they were saying, we had about 20,000 applicants for my year. So imagine going through 3 to 4 stages, so potentially 5 stages of an audition process, and having to battle through all those people. And they do go through each and every single one of them. Some don't make it past the first stage, which is fine. Then some don't make it past the second, the third, the fourth stage, etc. And then once obviously you make it, then you're on it. But from my experience getting in the tent, that I think that once you get through the audition process, I think being in the tent is a lot easier to some extent.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, being in the tent is still stressful and hectic because you still have to, you're not used to the oven. Maybe eventually you get used to the oven when you go past episode, etc., week 5, etc. By your equipment. So sometimes you have to bring things that you're used to. So if you work better with a specific spatula, make sure you take it. Whisk, make sure you take it. Things that can help you progress, use them, and they do allow that to some extent.
Right.
And they do provide you with ingredients that you need and that you feel work better with your recipe.
Right.
But the audition process it wasn't easy. But I guess nothing comes easy in life. So if you want it, then you just have to prep and practice for it.
Yeah, no, because that's really very insightful into that whole process. That it's not something which just happened overnight. It was a fairly long process that you had to go through.
Yeah, it's so when you apply, it's from when you apply to when you get accepted, it's about 3, 4, 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so because I think I applied in September, October, maybe, basically right after it finished airing on TV. Yeah. So October, and I don't think I found out till like final to maybe December, January.
Wow.
And then that's when it all starts. Then you start to do your, the prep, and they really look after you because they know, we talked about it before they started about sort of how things sort of go kind of out of hand in terms that you're now in a public eye and you may or may not be under scrutiny, etc. And they do look after you. They do prep you prior to obviously you being accepted onto the show. So they don't just leave you out. They do look after you because they know it is a funny world out there, and they just make sure that everyone is protected and looked after from start to finish, from when you apply to when the last episode airs, the final airs. So there's a lot of hand holding throughout the process, which is great.
So they help to give you that sense of one belonging to the show, but also the protection which is necessary from your newfound celebrity, as it were, because it was almost like how was that process of engaging with social media? Because it was almost like overnight you had gone from just being the guy who was working, doing his stuff, doing his charity bake sales, and then all of a sudden now your face is on national newspapers, Twitter, and all of those things. How did you feel when that started to kick off?
It was a weird experience. I'm quite I'll say quiet. A lot of people think I'm too laid back. I'm quite chill and laid back. And basically, so throughout the process as well, you can't tell anyone. So you probably will be able to tell people that you live with, and that's it. And but then they have to send an NDA, so you can't just put it out there and say, "Oh, I'm on the bake-off" kind of thing. You have to keep everything secret until they announce who the bakers are when you see your face in the newspaper. Yes. So I think I went into the office and then literally, I mean, you do know when it's going to be announced on, in the public, and because they do tell you that, but you can't say anything until it goes out. So I go in the office and everyone at work said, "Oh my God," that kind of thing. And you almost have to, I don't know, I guess in a way for me, because I'm quite laid back, and you have to be humble, right? You have to be humble. Don't let it get to your head. Just enjoy it, because remember, you're out. I mean, at that point it's too late anyway, because we filmed it, you know who the winner is, you know who leaves this week, etc. But again, you can't spoil it.
Say anything. Yeah.
You can't say, which is great, and I don't think anyone has ever done that, which is fantastic. But yeah, the whole process of people starting to follow you, starting to comment on your week's performance, starting to, you know, either, you know, pick things about you or just say nice things to you, you know, you almost have to just take everything and just, as for me personally, I just like, okay, it's good. And I've always had an optimistic or sort of a positive mindset or mind frame with anything. And I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So for example, weeks where they said, oh, you know, you should have won Star Bake, I was like, you know, I can't, the judges know what they're doing, and you know, you can't really knock them and you can't dispute that, because I always say not a lot of people have that opportunity. I went on there as a learning experience to learn, not necessarily, I mean, as much as I would have loved to win, I didn't win, which is fine. That, you know, Candice deserved to win. I went there to learn. So if the judges didn't feel that I didn't deserve it that week, there's a reason behind it, because it's a long day of filming, right? And they have to put it into just an hour. So there's so much that goes on that the judges will say, okay, maybe he didn't tick this box, so that's fine. And they only show that 1 hour, whereas we film 5, 6, 7 hours in the day. And so there's a lot going on that the audience don't necessarily see, that we know happen in the tent. But obviously, so hush, you just have to just do it. But yeah, so to answer your question in terms of, you know, the whole overnight thing, you just have to, for me, you just have to be humble and don't be a diva, don't get carried away. Just enjoy it, have fun. And if you can, you know, if you can create some sort of positive impact out of it by helping others, you know, even if it's in the form of sharing recipes, sharing, you know, experiences and whatever, just do that. But don't suddenly think you're Tina Turner or, you know, Lionel Richie, and, you know, have a, what's it called, a rider list and, you know, all that kind of thing. You just have to manage your expectations and people's expectations and just be yourself.
I like that. There was a couple of points which you mentioned which really resonated, in that you said, actually, when I was in there, I was learning. I recognized that effectively I wasn't fit. I remained humble because I was constantly learning. And I think that's a really valid or a really useful piece of advice, in that no matter what it is that we're going through, no matter how successful we might think that we've become, we should always be in a position to learn, because every experience that we get is a new learning process. So
exactly.
What I was just thinking then, how is this life after Bake Off, right? Life after Bake Off. What kind of things have happened to you which you could probably attribute back to the fact that you were on Bake Off? Do you think, because you studied economics, right? And are you still in, let me ask, are you still in the same job that you were in when you applied for the show, when you applied for Bake Off? Or are you now in, has your past just changed as a result of being in Bake Off?
Bake Off is great. So if anyone watching, listening, if you want to do it and you feel it's the best thing for you, do it. It's great because it does open a lot of doors and opportunities for you. And I've loved everything I've done since Bake Off. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of big names that you wouldn't have thought, oh wow, you know, you would ever get that opportunity to work with them. And you know, and I was quite lucky. I was quite sensible as well. So I've been with my agent for the last 4 years now since Bake Off, and she's really great. She looks after me. She knows what is good for me. And you know, I've had the opportunity on the back of Bake Off alone to move to Switzerland for 8 months. So I got granted a sabbatical by the company I work for, the bank. to move to Switzerland to actually study professionally to do patisserie, which
fantastic.
wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't have been possible at all on the back of Baker, because I don't think I could go to a company as as Selasi from X, who did economics, say, hey, can you sponsor me? And I didn't actually approach them. They actually came and said, hey, we would like to sponsor you to spend some time at our school to train you professionally. And initially I was a bit, because I know I work in banking, I was quite risk averse. I'm quite a risk averse person. I've got insurance to cover everything. And I'm that kind of a person. So I was like, ooh, should I do it? And eventually I kind of said, you know what, life is too short, just go for it. And again, that's another thing that you can do to sort of, just refine your baking and your skills and your knowledge. And not many people would have that opportunity that you're in. And eventually I did it, and it's been one of the best experiences ever. I've learned so much. I've learned how to actually bake properly, to understand ingredients more, just on the back of that studying in Switzerland and Paris. And that was just purely because of Bake Off.
Fantastic.
And that was purely because of Bake Off and having to work with these amazing brands and having these people around me. So the friends, family, my agents who know what's best for me. And even if I wanted to get carried away and big-headed, they will put me in my place. I'm quite lucky that I'm not that kind of a person. They'll just bring me back down to earth, and they've supported me along the way. And it's just great to see.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm going to open up the question. I can see in our chat we've got a raging debate going on already. So I'm going to open up. I'm going to open up a couple of questions. I'm not sure if I should start with Sarah or whether I should start with Sunday, because both of them have got. There's been some kind of Sunday came on first with the camera, so there's a race between the two of them. So, Sunday, do you want to give us your question, and then Sarah?
Right. Thank you very much, Selasi. Amazing conversation. I mean, I remember watching Bake Off, and each time I try watching, I try to write everything down and then try to do it a day or two afterwards. And
how did that go for you?
It's always bad. I blame my mother. For me, when I was growing up, I had 2 sisters and 4 brothers. And whenever the brothers or we go to the kitchen when the mother is cooking, she will kick us out. Say, no, this doesn't belong to you. Get out. You're only there to eat. But the girls, they learn how to cook beautifully. Yeah. So I blame my parents for that. But despite that, I've been trying my best to try and do things. But I can't stand in baking or cooking is time is involved. It requires a lot of time, and you have to be patient. Every time I try, I burn the food or I do. So, but my question is not related to that. You were talking, I mean, this is an ongoing thing that's going on around. I saw yesterday or 2 days ago that Heinz is now producing jollof rice. Yeah, they now package jollof rice just like any other.
Yeah, I've seen
which other black country haven't done. But the question to you, I'm sure you've tried jollof rice before. Which is the best, Nigerian, Ghanaians, or the Heinz? That's the question.
Where are you from?
Nigeria.
Where are you from? Then it's Ghanaian jollof.
I should have told you that.
Listen,
this is definitely Ghanaian jollof, I've got my, so we use the better rice. We use like better flavoring. We just cook it much better. I mean, not to say Nigerian jollof is not good. It's still great. It's tasty. But Team Ghana, definitely, Gina. Team Ghana jollof is the one.
Listen, if I spend a week in West Africa, a week meaning 7 days, 5 days of those is in Ghana.
Yeah.
And why? Because I love Ghanaian jollof rice. So, well done.
There you go. I won't tell you other Nigerian friends.
I was hoping we would steer away from the jollof wars, but it just came back. First question up.
Nah, it's got to come up. It's got to come up.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So
Anyway, thank you.
it's settled. Thank you for that question. Sarah, did you have a question that you wanted to
Yeah,
ask?
I have two questions, although I'm slightly thrown. I just Googled Heinz jollof, and so I need to go and have a lie down now. But apart from that, so the first question I have, it was about Christmas. So you were telling us about the big family meals that you have, especially when you're back in Ghana. How are you going to cope if it turns out that we're under rules of no households mixing at Christmas? What will you do?
Do you want the PC answer? I think it'll be a struggle because my mom and dad, they live outside of London, 40 minutes away from us. But it will be hard. But then I've got neighbors who I'm very close and tight with, so we'll probably have like a meal, but like social distancing meal. But I will always. Yeah, exactly. Without fail, the government is not going to stop us eating or feeding one another. So there will definitely be some sort of edible cake, food, whatever, during Christmas, sharing with neighbors, even if it has to be in takeaway bowls. That's definitely going to happen. And a few drinks, of course.
Sounds good. And then the second thing I was going to talk about is, hasn't come up yet. You do a lot of charity work and fundraising.
Yes.
So how did you get into that? And tell us a bit more about it. What made you do that?
I don't know why, but I've always been, is a giver a right word? I wouldn't call myself a philanthropist because that's a bit too fancy kind of thing. But I've always sort of been the type to just, from college, from, high school, college, I've always done bake sales. And I think on the back of baking, you almost, it gets to a point where people are fed up of you feeding them cakes because everyone is watching their figure and whatever that is. So then what can you do next? Let's bake some cupcakes. Let's bake some cookies to do some fundraising. And through that as well, you learn different bakes and different experiences. I mean, I've done what the banks are very good at. They do a lot of charitable stuff. So they do promote a lot of charity work as well. So every year, charities come into the bank, they pitch ideas, and then we basically, the 2 successful charities are sponsored for the entire year via bank activities, etc. And what that includes is we have like monthly bake sales. We get the opportunity to travel to do treks abroad. So we've done Machu Picchu, we've done Malawi, we've done quite a few different mountains and things in Morocco and different countries where we use that to fundraise, and the bank will match the fundraising amount. So if you raise 2,000, the bank will add 2,000, so that's 4,000 for the charity. So there's always been sort of a charitable aspect in everything I've done, and that was purely through baking.
Fantastic.
That's
That's really excellent to know, that you're using it for you're using the experience and the connections to help others. That's absolutely brilliant. I think I've seen another question. Red, did you want to ask your question?
Hello. Hi.
Hiya.
My question is about, you've obviously picked up loads of knowledge on baking and wonderful things to bake, as well as that 8-month patisserie course. So what do you think is your favorite thing to bake? And what's your favorite thing to eat?
Favorite thing to bake, I know sometimes I make fancy stuff, and that's only because I went to do the training. But for me, I kind of like simple bake. So for me, it'll be a chocolate fondant. So it's in French, it's called molo au chocolat, and that's literally it's got like 5 ingredients: egg, flour, chocolate, butter, and you just bake it short space of time, and it's got like an oozy chocolate center. And that for me, it's the perfect bake, because it's quite simple. It's not time consuming. I mean, we mentioned earlier about how sometimes baking can be time consuming. It's just easy and straightforward. And to eat, it's between, I mean, I love food. That's a tough one. I'm gonna pick two, and it's a bit cliche, but number one would be fried plantain.
Oh yes.
Yeah, with peanuts. So we call it kelewele in Ghana, and I could eat that every day of the week if I could get away with it. Number two would be jollof rice.
Ghanaian.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't rub it in now, Red. Don't rub it in.
No, I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to leave the jollof rice to another day now. But no, the whole idea about, there was something which you said about at Christmas, about when Sarah was trying to get you in trouble by getting you to break lockdown or something, right?
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of what you said about, why don't we share what we have at Christmas with our neighbors, so that although we are socially distanced, we can still share something with our neighbors, so that they're able to, we can still have that feeling of a community spirit. And I think especially this year, above other years, I think we're going to really need that, to just look in and to be, and I think that really kind of like is the heart of what you've said about the charity work which you've done and you continually do. So maybe you heard it here first, that Selasi is launching a new campaign for
feed your neighbors.
Feed your neighbors at Christmas. Christmas.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, this year has been really terrible for everyone. You know, you hear people say, "Why is this happening to me?" And you should never, especially this year anyway, you should never take anything personally, because everyone is in the same boat. Everyone is in exactly the same situation. Some people better than others, but you almost have to think whatever situation you're in, someone is 99% more likely going to be in a worse situation than you. And you just have to do as much as you can to help, you know, someone else. And maybe help is the wrong word, but I mean, when lockdown happened the first time around, me and my neighbor, I mean, I used to cook loads and bake loads, and I just used to pass it over, knock on their door, give it to them, just something to cheer people up, to just enjoy. And one of my neighbors would be in charge of making like cocktails and stuff. So in the process, you can get tipsy. But it was all good. So you just have to just enjoy every situation you're in, whether bad or, you know, because whether good or bad, because then if it's bad, then you know there'll be brighter days to come. There will be brighter days to come. And this year it's written off, but no, I don't think anyone should take it personally, but just kind of feel that you're lucky one to be in good health, to be alive, to be able to drink a glass of water. You know, I mean, yesterday kids can't have free school meals, so you know. You just need to kind of think of the positives. I don't know if it's just me, but I just think of positives in things that you do and just move it on.
I don't know if anyone else has got any other questions. I haven't seen.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Selasi, which area of London do you live, so that I could turn up for Christmas?
You're moving in.
Yeah, just let me know.
Or I'll send my drone for a pickup.
Yeah, we can make Ghana jollof with turkey.
That's fantastic. My final question, right? Because I've been, well, maybe one or two questions more, but I've been listening to your outlook on life. You are an incredibly positive person. I can just tell that from the way that you've addressed the answers to my questions. Where does that come from? Because you seem to have like this inner peace. I don't know if I'm right, but where does that come from?
I think I don't know, maybe my parents or my family, and it's just the calmness. And I think it's also sort of a Ghanaian thing. You know, Ghanaians are quite chill and just very laid back people. You know, we smile, we find happiness in everything and anything. You know, I've been to Ghana so many times since I moved to the UK. You go to sort of the deprived neighborhoods, or you go to a market, for example, and you know, these women and the men and the, you know, market sellers, they're all happy and laughing, and you know, they're not in the best circumstances, they don't have the best support, but they're still enjoying life and they're having fun. And I think it's a Ghanaian thing, because you know, as Africans or as Black people, we've been through so much that in a way you just have to just enjoy wherever it's left in terms of the opportunities and, you know, experience and resources that we have. We just have to enjoy it and try and impact some change along the way where we can. And just, you know, a smile literally goes a long, long way. You know, like I said, someone could be going through the worst time and you walk past them and say, hey, you're right, or smile at them, and it could actually just cheer them up and make a difference. And it's just, yeah, and it's just great. And I get it from my parents, I think, and family relatives, because they've always looked out for us and make sure that we're okay, we're happy, and you know, at the worst of times, they're always there for you. My neighbors will come in when my parents are away. My neighbors will come to the house and look after you. Or sometimes when I'm naughty, my neighbors will come in and give me a beating because I've been naughty. Because I used to get caned, and you know, it's all experiences and discipline, and you just learn as you go along. Yeah,
no, that's fantastic. Gina has asked if she can ask a question, so I'm going to say, Gina, can you come in and ask your question, and then we'll summarize and wrap up. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Wayne. I just wanted to ask a quick question about breaking stereotypes, Selasi, because I remember when all my co-workers first saw you, they didn't know what box to put you in, because, you know, you worked in finance, you did baking, you liked riding motorbikes, you know, they couldn't put you in a neat little box. How did you feel about breaking so many stereotypes?
Yeah, I've seen a few comments on Twitter. I mean, they're not harsh, they're not horrible, but I just laugh about it. Yeah, it's weird. Well, I'm weird. That's why I've got so many things that no one can really put in a box. I'm a very weird guy. Like, I find happiness in the weird things, and yeah, my sister can't even understand me sometimes. Like, why did I turn out this way? And I always say it's probably because I'm a middle child. So middle children are normally unwanted, right? So I have an older brother, and I think unless the parents wanted a third child, but I think my parents were actually after my sister when they had my brother, because they wanted 2 kids, and then I turned up like, oh hey, you know, and then they had to try again. So I think that's why I kind of got that weirdness from where, you know, my love for motorbikes came from. Although I'm risk averse, I kind of like adventure as well. So my love of motorbikes came from my cousin on my dad's side, who lives in Switzerland, and she's crazier than me, and she loves all the hiking and the jumping off, you know, cliffs and parachutes and then motorbikes, and I love that. And the cooking, I guess, was from food and eating. And then the finance, I think that is on the back of growing up. You know, your parents want the best for you, so they send you to school. They want you to be a doctor, to work in finance, to be a lawyer. They don't say directly like you would maybe find in other cultures or other countries, but they kind of, you know, do in a subtle way where you don't feel like you're forced to go into a profession. And I kind of wanted that, but for me, my passion was food and cooking. So that's why all these things have come together. So it's hard to, you are right, or your friends were right. It is hard to put me in a little basket, which I guess makes me weirdly unique, I guess. I don't know.
I love that. That's absolutely brilliant. All right. I want to just say a big thank you for sharing your hints, tips, and I was going to bring a cake in and get you to judge over the and say
it's Friday as well.
Right, exactly, right. What do you think of my cake? But I didn't have the time to do the proper baking, and I thought it would be wrong for me to go to.
Are you a baker then?
I do like chocolate cakes, and I do try to bake a chocolate cake every now and then. Haven't done one for a while, but I do like my chocolate cakes. So
yeah.
I just didn't have time last night to get out the tools and get started on it. So maybe now, tonight, this is my own thing. I'm going to have to go home and I'm going to have to think, yes, Lassie was, you haven't given us any hints and tips. I heard you before talking to Sarah about, I think it was baking cookies. Was it baking cookies, Sarah?
Yeah, I've got
Gingerbread
time
men.
now. So if you want to ask hints and tips, then I can answer them. I've got a bit of time now. So if you want to ask for, yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah.
Right. So let's anyone got a hint or a top tip? I can see that. A top tip.
I mean, you can also share with me because, you know, home bakers are different from professionals, so you can always learn from, you know, how you make something at home. So yeah, you can also share some tips with me.
All right, guys. So we've got 2 minutes. If anyone's got a tip that they would like to know, or if they've got a tip which they would like to know about, or a tip which they have for doing a particular, I don't know, recipe or something, we've got 2 minutes to share that tip. Any ideas, guys? Selasi, can you kick us off? Sarah, what was your one again? Sorry.
So I said I was coming to this meeting. I was in a meeting before this, and Josie Ann asked me, she said, I make gingerbread men, but I keep burning them. So what tips has Selasi got for me to stop burning my gingerbread men?
To stop burning
that would be actually bake it between 160 and 170 fan, and then just don't bake it beyond that. So 160 170 fan, and once it's baked, so bake for, depending on how thin you roll it, about 0.2 millimeters. Bake it for 15 minutes, take out the oven, and then leave it because it's still cooking when it's out of the oven, and then it will have the right texture in terms of the break, and short and snappy rather than fighting the biscuit, or you have to dunk it in tea.
I like that one. Red.
Yeah.
How do we make a sponge cake nice and moist?
Please, I tried one last week. It did not go well. It was very dry.
What cake was it?
I was trying to make a Victoria sponge.
Okay, so what you can do is perfect. So what you can do, because Victoria sponge is usually sort of the same. So let's say 250 butter, 250 flour. For that recipe, maybe 3 eggs, 250 sugar or 200 sugar. So it's usually the same ingredients for that. So what you can do is say if it's 250 butter, for example, you can then put 200 butter and then 50 oil. And that helps with the moistness, or you can replace the butter or add a bit of milk to sort of loosen the mixture. And then again, with sponges, you can bake them quite low. You don't have to give it like for 180. So with sponges, 170, 175, maybe 180, depending on the size, and bake a shorter period. And then once it's done, wrap it, take out the tin, wrap it in cling film and let it cool in the cling film, and that keeps the moistness.
Oh, very good, very good. Thank you very much, Selasi. If you don't mind.
And then if you don't take this on board, what you can do is you can make a simple syrup with sugar and water. So 1:1 or 2:1. So let's say 200 water, 100 grams sugar. You can flavor it with vanilla and orange essence, etc. And then you can brush it into the sponge. But they both need to be warm. So once the cake is warm, the syrup needs to be warm as well. And then you brush it, because when it's warm, the sponge is quite open, so it will absorb the liquid more.
Hashtag science. Thanks
Brilliant.
very much. Thanks a lot. That's excellent tip. That's an excellent tip.
You're
I'm going to try that tonight, this weekend.
Yeah.
Genevieve, do you want to come on, or do you want me to ask it?
I don't mind asking it.
Go ahead then, please.
I was wondering if you had any tips for making caramel, because I've never successfully made it right. It always turns to treacle or something really disgusting in the bottom of the pan that I can't remove.
The best temperature for nice runny caramel as you're boiling is about 103, between 103 and 107 degrees Celsius. And once you get to that, so you definitely need a thermometer if you're new to caramel making. What you can do is with it, I always do a dry caramel first, so sugar, no water, because that's easier for most people. And then when you're adding the cream, make sure the cream is warm, because we're used to adding the cold cream, and that basically causes the sugar to harden. And then what that means is you need to cook it longer for the sugar to dissolve. By cooking it longer, you're browning it a lot more, it becomes bitter. So make sure you've got the right color of caramel in terms of the sugar melting. The cream needs to be warm. Once you add it, you literally just boil it for a minute or two, or until it gets to 103, and then you can take care of the heat, then add your butter and your salt and your vanilla if you're adding vanilla, and you can add things like chocolate to it if you want it creamier as well. But make sure that the cream is warm, and that helps you or stops you from cooking it longer to brown it to become hard.
Amazing, thank you.
I've got Al who's
No
just made a comment, and it was what was going through my head at the same time, because you said earlier on you don't like science, right? And then you're reeling off, you know, it has to be between 102 and 106, anything above that, and that's science, my brother. That is
Yeah, I had to learn. And that was purely on the back of me going to patisserie school, because they really made me understand that to get these right, you have to know, like, you can't just wing it anymore, because that's what I did in the tent. I used to wing it all the time, all the way through to week 9, and you can't just do that anymore, because now everyone is expecting you to know this, to know that, and you know, you have to know your stuff.
That's brilliant. Listen, it's just a shame we're in lockdown, because I would love to have you in the lab and we could do some kind of gastronomical, well, maybe not in a lab, we'll probably do it in a kitchen, so we could actually eat the stuff afterwards.
I don't want to burn down the building though.
Listen, we're going to get that in the diary for 2022.
Yeah, let's do that. I love that, actually. I did is it the BBC one? They do a royal science thing. I can't remember, a few years ago, and that was quite fun, actually. It was very sciencey. I didn't get it fully, but it was fun.
Brilliant, brilliant. Like, I know that you have to go, right? But this has been absolutely fantastic. We've enjoyed hearing.
Thank you very much. Story. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. And the tips, I know that there's going to be a lot of people baking this weekend as a result of this conversation, including myself. So thank you very much.
I can't wait.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, if you need more tips, you've got my email.
Definitely.
I can always share some tips and recipes and stuff, so that's cool.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Selasi. Right, I'm going to just
thank you.
Just before we go, I'm going to just, for anyone who hasn't been able to see the recording, what I'm going to do is we'll have this up on our YouTube site very soon. And I just want to advertise that for next week, we will be having Judith Jacobs, who's a British actress. She will be joining us and discussing some of her experiences in acting through and her career to date. And as I said, if you haven't had an opportunity to see some of the other interviews we've done, they are available at this tiny URL on YouTube. So once again, thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you again next week. So thanks very much.
Thank you.